Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this Blue Lagoon Geode inspired resin piece. I will link my blog post below about how I mixed all my colors, but here are my materials. I'll link them in the description. And then I just got started kind of pouring the base in the mold. I'm using those cups to kind of hold the space because I wanted to do a solid colored middle. Not the best technique, but it worked enough for what I needed it for. You can see here that I'm using teal, turquoise, gold, and white in the clear resin to kind of make the base layer here. So I'm just swirling the colors in, mixing them a little bit, and kind of letting the heat gun spread it out to fill that whole mold up. I wanted to go for more of a freeform geode inspired piece, but it really just ended up being round, which I'm okay with. Here you can see I'm just kind of putting in some of that fire glass around the cups to really define that shape. I'm also using these little turquoise beads that I found in the vase filler section at Walmart. I can't find them online, but you should just be able to find them in any local store. And here I'm just going back in with more of those colors to create more of those swirling patterns and just filling out that whole shape. The heat gun pops the bubbles, so that's why I keep using it. It also does a nice blending of those colors, so it's multi-purpose. Now I'm just going in with more of those little beads and really adding texture to the edges of the piece. I'm going to go in with the turquoise resin on top of it to kind of blend them in a little bit so they don't look as out of place. And then once it dries, they'll kind of, morph into everything and give it a textured look. So these next few seconds are just more of me adding in swirls of each color just to, add more patterns to it and use up some of the resin I've got. And then I'm going to go in with my fire glass and really outline the edges of the piece and that center section to give it some definition. I'm using all sorts of different shapes and sizes so that it's not really regular. That's why I have the two different sized cups in the middle to give it kind of almost like an 8 shape. And then I'm just going to go back in with my little beads around the edge to give them more thickness and more texture. Like I mentioned earlier, I just covered it with a little bit of the turquoise to blend them in a little bit better. And now I'm removing those cups, and you can see the resin kind of poured in there, so I poured on some of those beads to give it texture. And then I went in with my turquoise and my teal and my white and swirled them together to create that kind of like pool-like effect that you can see on the final piece. So here I'm just adding a few more pieces of the crystal, those glass pieces, and then just a few more swirls of color, using up the last bits of resin that I have left, adding some extra details here. As it dries, it always shifts, so I like to add a little bit of extra detail so that as it kind of softens up a little bit, it still shows in the final product. It's a little messy, but the good thing about this silicone mold here is that resin doesn't stick to it, so it's easy to remove once it's cured for at least 24 hours. I wouldn't take this out any sooner than that, just because it's a thin piece and you want it to be solid. So here's what it looked like when I was finished, and then I let it sit overnight. Here's some close-up details, and then I just removed it from the mold, and here is what it looks like with indoor lighting. And this is the back. You can kind of see through. Certain parts are translucent. You can see the gold and the glitters. And here's just a close-up of that middle section and what I called the pool earlier. So here it is in bright sunlight. My favorite thing about resin artwork is that if you leave some of that clear, untinted resin, you really can kind of see through, and it plays with the light in some really cool ways. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below if you have any questions or certain colors you'd like to see in the future. If you make your own version, I would love to see it. Please tag me on Instagram or Facebook at SamanthasDoodles. Alright, thanks everyone. See you next time.